You're live on YouTube.
And recording.
Okay. Welcome, everyone. This is our council meeting number 14, being held on Tuesday, March 2nd at 6:30 p.m. Of course, as per these COVID times, this is a virtual meeting. I thank council colleagues, staff, and others for joining us virtually and bearing with some technological hiccups along the way. We appreciate staff's effort for this process to go smoothly, and certainly we will do what we can. That being said, I am going to call the meeting to order. Residents of North Grenville and business leaders have been made aware of how they can both stream the meeting and or provide comments and questions. So of course you are welcome at any time to reach out to the clerk's office at clerk@northgrenville.on.ca should you have a question or concern. With that, I will call the meeting to order and I'll move to the approval of the agenda. And colleagues, we do have one addition for the agenda this evening, and that is that we have received two formal requests to provide letters of support to internet service providers seeking federal funding to improve connectivity and rural broadband in Ontario and beyond. To that end, after having discussed it with staff, I think it may be prudent to provide these letters of support, and I'd like to put that on the agenda this evening so that we can have a quick chat. So that is the one item or one addition to the meeting that I would like to propose, Ms. Babcock-Cormier, and I'll look to my colleagues in the event that there are other questions or concerns or suggestions. Colleagues, are you satisfied with the agenda as amended?
Yes.
Good. I'll look to Councillor O'Sullivan and Deputy Mayor to move in second, please. Thank you. I'll call the question then. Just raise your hands. All in favor? Good. Thank you. And the agenda is approved as amended. Thank you very much. Next, I'll look to disclosures of interest. Colleagues, any disclosures of interest in regards to any item on the agenda this evening?
Yep.
Councillor Barkley, go ahead.
Yeah. I have a potential perceived conflict when we get to item H 1.2, discussion of the Downtown Grenville Community Action Plan. So I understand the clerks will be putting me in the waiting room during that discussion and bringing me back, hopefully.
Excellent.
Okay.
Thank you very much. And I'm sure they'll take note of that, and we will take note of that when the time comes. Appreciate it. With that in mind, I see no other disclosures. So we'll move on to our presentation, and this is from the Leeds Grenville Small Business Enterprise Center. And I think I saw Wendy, and I don't know if we have Jeanette as well.
We have both.
Yes, yeah, we're both here.
Wonderful. So we'll pass it over to you. Thank you very much. And can Ms. Babcock-Cormier, are we going into presentation mode for this?
Yes, we are. Mr. Gilmer is going to introduce the presentation first, and then Ms. Mehta will draw up the presentation.
Fantastic. Over to you then, Mr. Gilmer.
Thank you, Mayor Peckford. Just a point of clarification. Would anybody have an issue with me doing my report first and then having them present directly after? I think that makes the most sense rather than them presenting, then me reporting it further down the agenda.
As long as there's no objections from the clerk's office, I'm fine. Are we comfortable with that, colleagues?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Fire away then, Mr. Gilmer.
Thank you, Mayor Peckford. So I'll start off by giving a bit of background on the Small Business Center and their relationship with the municipality. The Leeds Grenville Small Business Center is one of 57 centers across Ontario whose mission is to guide and nurture entrepreneurship. The SBC provides business consultations, mentorship, workshop, and conferences geared to assist small business owners with all aspects of their business. They are located in City Hall in Brockville. However, they service all of Leeds and Grenville. In May 2019, the municipality of North Grenville partnered with the Leeds Grenville Small Business Center to run a 6-month business service pilot project. The project was developed with the following objectives: The first objective was to improve accessibility of business experts and business services to the municipality of North Grenville. And the second objective was to retain existing jobs and create new ones by helping businesses grow. And the third objective was to strengthen relationships between community partners in order to expand and improve services to small business. After a successful 6-month program, the municipality agreed to extend the Small Business Center's contract from October 31st, 2019 to April 30th, 2020. In April 2020, the municipality granted an additional contract extension from April 30th, 2020 to December 31st, 2020. Due to the timing of the municipal budget and scheduling, you'll notice that the SBC has been operating without a contract since January 1st, 2021. The SBC is requesting a 12-month contract extension at a cost of $16,800 that would run from January 1st to December 31st, 2021. The cost of the SBC contract was included as part of the approved 2020 municipal budget. Staff is recommending that Council approve the extension of the Leeds Grenville Small Business Center contract for the period of from January 1st to December 31st, 2021 at a cost of $16,800. We're pleased to have Wendy and Jeanette from the SBC here tonight to talk about their 2020 program and what they have planned for 2021. I'll now turn it over to Wendy and Jeanette.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you very much, Matt. So we just need the slide presentation. Fabulous. So Mayor Peckford, Council, members, municipal staff, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. Jeanette, Carol, and I we want you to know how much we really appreciate your support. Myself specifically, because over the past 16 years, it's been my pleasure to be part of the economic development team. Through different councils and staff, we were always made to feel comfortable and welcome, and collectively, I feel that we made a difference in North Grenville and the business community. Next slide, please. I'm not going to dwell on this because Matt really covered it in his introductory remarks. So next slide, please. So what we're going to talk about tonight is just a very quick review of our services that we provide, our accomplishments from 2020 and our plans for 2021. Next slide, please. So our core services are consultations. So business consultations are normally one-on-one. The resources that we provide in terms of helping businesses with workshops and the tools, the business plan templates and marketing plans and that kind of thing. So those are the core things that we provide.
Starter Company Plus is one of our larger programs that we're administrating right now. It provides one-on-one guidance from the center. We provide a business plan bootcamp, coaching and training from professional consultants and coaches. The participants can receive up to $5,000 in funding through a pitch process. And that training and mentorship better positions the participants to be successful and profitable and to obtain more traditional funding in the future. We're featuring Karen Quigley here on the right. She took part in the program in 2018, 2019, and was our Entrepreneur of the Year in 2019. Next slide, please. Some stats around Starter Company Plus from 2019 to 2021. We trained 30 people in the business plan bootcamp. 9 of those were from North Grenville. We issued 27 grants totaling $129,900. 7 of those were North Grenville participants, so the total is $34,675. And then we have a few stats around businesses started, expanded, and purchased, and showing the North Grenville stats as well. We partnered with Eleanor Liberto, who is a graduate of the program, and she is now a marketing mentor with us. Next slide, please. Our flagship program that is now 21 years old is Summer Company. It's our student entrepreneurship program where students can try out running a business for the summer. We provide startup funding of $1,500. We provide mentoring, coaching, and training, and on completion of the program, they receive $1,500 again. And we've helped over 186 participants over the last 20 years. And last year, our 6 participants earned over $28,000 in revenue, even through COVID. They did an exceptional job. 2 of these 6 participants are North Grenville residents. This male in the top center, Kai Rebuka, and the male on the bottom left, Jacob Kirkham. Next slide, please.
So this is one of our new programs that we were able to secure with some federal funding. It's the Women's Entrepreneurship Program, and the focus of this program is really to move a woman who is either working in a business part-time or has a hobby that they're interested in moving into a full-time business. So this 12-week virtual program, so it's all done online, provides them with the tools to do that. So they do a business plan online, and they also receive training in terms of business basics, so accounting, operations, and marketing, and also some leadership skills that we facilitate with them, and some social media training as well. And we really do hold their feet to the fire and make them accountable for the goals that they set. We have a coordinator that looks after this program, and we have a very an excellent mentorship team, and they meet regularly, like online. Next slide, please. So we thought we'd show you a little video of Amber Denis, who's a North Grenville resident, and she runs an equine business. And she participated in I think it's the first round of the Women's Entrepreneurship Program. So roll video, please. I can't hear her.
Luck, is there any way we can pause to add the audio in? Or we're just going to go on?
Sorry, I believe we're having audio issues.
Okay. All right. So we'll go on, and if we have time at the end, we can go back and see if they're fixed.
Okay. Apologies.
That's okay. So some results for 2020. You provided us $17,000 in funding in 2020. So with that contribution, we put over $25,000 of grant money back into the community through the starter company and the summer company program. And we provided in this slide some other stats that I hope you've had a chance to look at, but we think that's a pretty great return on investment. And we hope that you agree with us. And we've listed some of our success stories here and some of the initiatives that we have taken part in since COVID hit. Next slide, please. So at the beginning of COVID, we provided online workshops with our businesses and the business educators to help businesses start to pivot in an unknown landscape. We became part of the county working group and the Love NG group. The province of Ontario created a recovery program, so we started to develop that here and implemented it in January of 2021 with the Ask the Expert program, where clients meet with experts and we pay the bill. Next slide, please.
So what's happening in 2021? So what our plan is to continue to market our services in the North Grenville area through print ad, through online, through radio advertisements, and through word of mouth, just to keep clients coming to us so we can keep helping them. We are doing some outreach in terms of consultations, and we had been, of course, doing that over the last year via Zoom, and some in person when When the restrictions lifted in the fall, I was out in North Grenville visiting people at their place of business. And we hope that we can resume doing that. And we were also asked for input by the Grenville Campus Renewal Initiative around youth entrepreneurship, and we agreed to support this. We did a letter of support, and we also anticipate that in the fall we'll be active there too. Next slide.
Just before you go to the next slide, Palak, we just also want to mention that Starter Company Plus and Summer Company will resume as normal. We missed that on this slide.
Yeah. It's business as usual, just doing a little bit more. Next slide. Okay, so the recovery program, as Jeanette spoke about a few minutes ago, we got an opportunity. All the small business centers across the Ontario received $32,000 in additional money to help businesses in recovery mode. So we decided to do a couple of different things, but the one we're talking about this evening is the Ask the Expert. So if people are struggling, if they're feeling frustrated or challenged and they need to speak to a lawyer, an accountant, a social media person, this program actually gives them up to 3 hours of complimentary consultation with specialists. And all they have to do is go to our website and request an expert. It's really easy, and we've had a lot of uptake. Across the United Counties, about 3 people in North Grenville have accessed this service. And it really only started in late January. Next slide, please. So we also do some events, as you likely already know. We do 2 major events. In the fall, we do Bridges to Better Business, which is our conference that we do every fall, and we did that virtually in October. And we also do International Women's Day, which is this Friday. And featured on the side of this slide is Kathy Shepherd. Kathy was our Lifetime Achievement Award winner in 2017 when we were actually able to get together in person. So it's not too late, ladies. If you want to sign up for International Women's Day, it's right there. Just go to the website and get signed up. It's going to be a great afternoon. And we also do workshops and seminars throughout the year on different business topics. Next slide, please. Okay, we'll try the audio in this one. This is Sherry Mitchell. Here we go. Family consignment shop in Grenville has been operating for over a dozen years. Early on in the pandemic, Shelley knew that she had to do something different. After the initial panic subsided, she got educated on all things social media, online shopping and video. She had herself set up with an online store and utilizing Facebook to her advantage. Shelley went the extra mile by offering kids Easter crafts and door-to-door deliveries. Shelley's lessons learned from the pandemic: fight for your business, find the flexibility, find a way to connect and keep clients, and embrace. These 3 businesswomen are examples of all things grit. So that's a little sneak preview of what we're gonna see on Friday. We, instead of doing a Lifetime Achievement Award, we wanted to feature some women that we really felt leaned in through the pandemic, and so Shelley was one of them. So I want to thank you very much for this opportunity of being with you this evening, and we sincerely hope that you will support us, and that you feel that the investment that you've made is paying off. So this is us. This is me for a little bit longer, not too much longer, but hanging in for another 59 days. And Jeanette and Carol are your team at the Small Business Center.
Thank you.
So thank you very much for your time.
Does anyone have any questions for us?
Yeah, thanks. It's Nancy here. Thanks so much for your presentation. We appreciate it. I have a feeling council may have a couple of questions. I'll just kick off, colleagues, and then feel free to jump in. I'm just curious about how you pivoted to that online model, if it's changed your overhead costs, if you've encountered any challenges with rural broadband, which we know is a major issue. And as we were dealing with a lot of businesses as well in our community in the early days of COVID, so many of them wanted to stream out services, feature products, and they were expressing to us the challenges of a underserved rural community, not just here in North Grenville, but across the United Counties. So I'd just be curious what the connectivity landscape has meant in terms of how you deliver your programs, but also the challenges you're hearing from other businesses. And then I'm just curious about International Women's Day. It's a day that's meant a lot to me over many, many years, in part based upon my past work in and around Parliament Hill, where it was well celebrated. I understand that it used to flip from Kemptville to Brockville. I think last year there was some effort to bring it to Kemptville or to have it in Kemptville, and that wasn't successful. Of course, this year, it's a virtual event, which is great because in many respects that does make it more inclusive. But I'd be curious to know, what are the plans to have a presence in North Grenville on International Women's Day? Because I understand last year it wasn't achievable, and I'd just like to know how we can work in partnership in the future. So maybe I'll start there.
Okay. So thank you, Mayor Peckford. So yes, we definitely have had we've experienced some issues with connectivity for sure. One of them that immediately springs to mind is
we just lost her.
Wendy, we lost your sound.
Oh, now you're back.
Okay. All right. So yeah, here we go. I'm in Maitland. So, so there's an example right there. But yes, in Maitland, we tried to do the Business of the Year for Augusta Township, and it was horrible. Mm-hmm. And with it just, we couldn't get, actually we had to use MP Barrett's phone as a hotspot in order to get connected. So it was horrible. And in terms of the rural businesses, some of the rural businesses that we are working with, absolutely it is an issue. Your comment around International Women's Day, when life gets back to normal, I'm sure, maybe I should let Jeanette speak for this because it will be hopefully her thing. But yeah, it's always been our intention to flip back and forth, but last year we just couldn't make it work.
I'd love to continue the partnership that we had going with North Grenville. And so here's to 2022 being COVID friendly.
Okay.
COVID free.
COVID free.
Just council colleagues, please gesture if you'd like to ask a question. Have you found that those who are wanting to avail of your programs have been able to do that, even if they've experienced some of those connectivity issues? Do you have workarounds, right, in terms of how people access those? I assume all the programs have been online for the most part for 2020, and do you foresee that into 2021 that you will exclusively be delivering programs online?
We've really been playing it by ear, and so we make a decision per event or per section of the program. And when we can, we switch out to in person. Like last summer, we did most of Summer Company online, and we had Kai had a lot of problem with connectivity from North Grenville. Mm-hmm. But, basically we just are patient and wait for his connectivity. We waited for his connectivity to pick up so that he could be part of the conversation again, and, turning off video to accommodate a bit more for bandwidth. We did manage to do a couple of in-person events with the Summer Company participants, and the same with Starter Company. So we've just tried to be flexible and go with the requirements that the health unit provides, while still trying to provide the full scope of the education that we're trying to provide to the participants.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Barkley?
Yeah, I just wanted to, no questions. I just wanted to thank Wendy and her team for managing this COVID pandemic. And I can truly attest to the value of our contribution to the Small Business Center. Both with my work downtown, seeing a lot of businesses start using their resources and their help, and as well as my own company when I brought it here in 2009. I'm sure Wendy is probably tired of hearing about the story of the one phone call that took a video project from a standing still to, you know, full speed in a single phone call. It was amazing. I'll never forget that phone call, Wendy. And you're going to be missed, you know, as you go on to greener pastures or whatever. Officiating, I believe, weddings, right? Yeah, you won't see me. I'm done with that. but you know, I've enjoyed my working as a mentor with the summer company, and again, there's a lot of businesses in this community that owe you a debt of gratitude for the help that you provided them. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Barkley.
Deputy Mayor?
Evening, ladies. I have a few questions, so I'll start. You mentioned the women's program, which is online and whatnot. How does that, if I'm a male and I want to do a program, do I have a program for just males, or how does that work? Like, is it because it's online? I'm trying to think of how is it different than if you were training a young male who's trying to start a business? Can you explain that to me?
Councillor McManaman, this program is something that the federal government has come up with, women's entrepreneurship. There seems to be a real slant, and I can't say that I haven't heard that comment before with regard to, you know, what's available for men. We are open to help anybody. It just happens that this particular, the federal government seemed to think that women needed some additional assistance, and so they put this program in place.
Okay, I guess that's not really my question, but my question was, am I at a disadvantage through you guys because I'm male, or is the program basically the same as what the women get? I guess is what.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I'm trying to get.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. I wasn't sure where you're coming from. Yeah. No. Thank you.
Yeah. All my clients are women, so
good for you.
Yeah. What I want to the other one, so we got. And a few years ago, when we first started this pilot program, we got talking, and I know we had an internal meeting, and I asked about surveying these clients and what their responses were like, and I believe you guys supplied us with a survey not too long after that. I think I kind of remember reading it. I don't know if you're still doing that, or if it's going to be done, so we can continue tracking the satisfaction of the clients that are working through you guys within North Grenville. Or I guess the other side of it too, would our ECDEV department have access to your client list to be able to talk to them and survey them on our behalf to see how's it going with your program, for one thing, and if there's any gaps, can North Grenville themselves and our own department fill those gaps or bring it to another level if that's needed? Is that a possibility?
With their permission, we could share that information. We would have to go out to the client list and just ask permission. Yeah, we could do that for sure.
Okay. The other question I had was on the Ask the Experts. I kind of missed, I saw it, but I kind of missed it. I'll have to go back, I guess. But can you just explain to me, how do I access that? I think you said 3 hours. Is it anybody within North Grenville? They got to go through you first, or how does that work if I need somebody to go to talk to an expert?
So you would go to our website and request the expert you need. It's all listed there.
So you don't need to be part of your program or anything. You can just.
Nope. Any business can access. Any business can do that.
And they get 3 hours of time with that person. Okay.
Well, they have a maximum of 3 hours so they can spend it all with one person, or they can divide it up amongst the other experts. but each client gets 3 complimentary hours.
Okay, good. That sounds like good value. Now, during COVID, I mean, you're going to get the biggest questions, of course, I got, our ECTEV team got, as well as, big one was, what government funding can I get? How do I do it? And I know Matt and our team were trying to help people, get the applications done. I'm suspecting you guys had some element of that as well that you did. If I was calling, of course, I think the other couple of questions that I had was, they're in financial difficulty. So if they can't get grants or it's limited, what's the next thing that you would be advising your clients when they're in financial trouble? Maybe it's just go to the experts we just talked about. And the second question would be, if I am able to open during this period, how my sales are down, what element of sales and marketing do you guys assist in? Like to what level? Just, and this is more of an information piece, I think, for public and for our department.
Mm-hmm. So the first question was around how do we help them with grants? I'm sorry.
That's correct.
Councillor McManaman. So how do we help them with that? So we actually, the Ontario Small Business Grant was the latest grant that was announced in late January. And we had one of our clients do a video of her actually applying for a grant, that particular grant, and how easy it is. So that resides on our website, and we also put it out on Facebook and did some promotion around that. So people can go there and see that application being completed. And also, I mean, we have been sharing all kinds of information on whatever's available through both provincially and federally. There's a lot of things out there, right? And small business owners are finding it very confusing. So if they reach out to us, we would provide them with some direction about who to speak with, like an actual person to speak with about those particular programs that are being offered right now. And I'm sorry, what was your second question, Councillor McManaman? Oh my gosh.
If I called you guys and I was in financial difficulties,
right,
part of it, the other part of it maybe is marketing and sales. I need to bring my sales up, and I'm having to do with that.
Mm-hmm. So we aren't accountants or lawyers. So we would start with a consultation just to see how bad things were. And we have several people in our network that would be able to do an assessment, because sometimes you just have to stop the bleeding so you don't lose your house. So we would refer them to somebody in our network to have a look at things and how bad they really were. We have business coaches also that might be able to help, come up with different ideas. So one of the things that we did right off the hop when COVID happened was we said, okay, this is where we are. We need to look at how we can pivot. What can we do differently? How can we get online? And that kind of thing. So we offered some information sessions and workshops for people. So yeah, we would sit down initially and talk with them and just do an assessment ourselves, and then try to get them the help they needed, because we might not be able to help them.
And the Ask the Experts right now is helping that situation as well, and we can use that resource until that funding runs out.
Okay, thank you, ladies, very much. Appreciate the service you're doing, and I think it looks like you've got some value there. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, I was muted again. It's a tough year. Lots of challenges in terms of, obviously, that I'm sure the demand that you're fielding on behalf of so many different businesses that are looking to pivot and survive and thrive in very extraordinary times. Colleagues, remaining colleagues, anything else? Not seeing anything. Councillor O'Sullivan, you're good? Okay. Okay, and I assume the same for Councillor Strachan. Okay, well, we appreciate you coming. I know you're doing the rounds, I'm sure, with many municipalities across the United Counties. So thank you for spending some time with us this evening. We certainly appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And best of luck, Wendy, with your retirement. How long have you been with the center?
16 years.
16. Wow. Well, if we don't cross your path via Zoom or some other way, good luck to you.
Thank you.
Hope you get some rest.
Oh, I think I will.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor Peckford.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Take care. Heather, I'm just trying to get back to my agenda, which is always proving challenging. So to that end, we've received the delegation, and I think under CEO's report, we have now addressed the Small Business Center presentation, and I understand there's a recommendation that Council extend the Leeds Grenville Small Business Enterprise Center contract for the period from Jan 1 to December 31st at a cost of $16,800. So I assume we'd want to see that motion moved at this time? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So I'll look to a mover and a seconder. I see Councillor Barkley, Deputy Mayor. Okay, great. Any discussion, colleagues?
Peckford?
Councillor Strakian?
Sorry. Yeah, I just have one comment. It's just an administrative one, that there's some inconsistencies with the dates in the report that was provided under the key findings. I think that there's a 2020 that should be a 2021. So it doesn't ultimately change what we're voting on, I think, but it's just to correct that small error.
I think the clerk's office will note that. Thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion, colleagues, on this particular motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question then. All in favor? Okay, great. Appreciate that. Thank you. So I'll revert back to the agenda and I'll see that we're in the section for which we can just briefly review the consent items. Of course, as per recent protocol, colleagues, we're looking at clustering items for which council deems that no discussion is required. Under your consent agenda this evening are 3 sets of minutes. The appointment of a Ferguson Forest Trails Committee member to the Active Transportation Advisory Committee, the proposed commemorative tree, bench, and bicycle rack program, as well as the violence and harassment policy statement, which I believe is coming from the municipality as an employer, which must, I think, provide a update to that statement on an annual basis. Mr. Dyke, I think I have that right. Is that correct?
That's correct, Your Worship.
Okay, so to that end, colleagues, is there anything you want to pull off the consent agenda? It is absolutely your prerogative to do so. This is your time to let us know. Councillor Strakian.
Yeah, I would like to see the last 2 items, the bike rack, etc. policy and the violence and harassment statement. I'd like to see those 2 pulled to discuss further. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Any other feedback, colleagues, on the consent agenda? Seeing none then, I don't have the motion before me, Heather, I'm so sorry. I think it is that the following consent agenda items be approved. And in this case, we're approving 1, 2, 3, and 4 without any objections. And I'll call for a mover and a seconder. Is that right? Looking to Ms. Babcock-Cormier again.
That's correct, Your Worship.
Okay. So Councillor Strakian and perhaps Councillor Sullivan, will you move in second? The adoption of a consent agenda for items 1 through 4. Okay, I'll call the question then. All in favor? Okay, excellent. Thank you. So then we'll move on to what's next on our agenda. Bear with me. We are going down to the reports from the CAO. We've dealt, of course, with the Small Business Center report, and now we'll move on to the Downtown Grenville Community Action Plan. To that end, I believe that we'll be in receipt of a presentation, and I think, Mr. Dyke, would you like to intro that?
Nothing.
If I can interrupt.
I'm sorry.
Your Worship, Hillary will doing the presentation.
I'm just going to move Councillor Barkley.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barkley. Take care. Okay. Welcome, Ms. Janeau.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here tonight to present the Downtown Grenville Community Action Plan, the finalized plan, and associated community improvement guidelines. As you know, we began the process to create the plan in November 2020. At that time, we held one-on-one interviews with stakeholders and had 2 community sessions, one with property owners and one with leaders from different community groups. We brought a draft plan to Council on January 26, and after hearing your feedback, we opened it to the public to provide more input. We received helpful responses from community members, property owners, and from the general public. Some are here tonight, and we want to thank them for their insights. I'll quickly walk you through the changes that we've made since the draft was presented to you about a month ago, and we'll go through any questions you have at the end. Firstly, we have increased the budget for the People Make the Place grant to $100,000 for 2021. This means that we would require $175,000 from the General Reserve Fund to fund the program in 2021. And we'll be bringing forward a reserve fund strategy at a later date to set out how to fund the program moving forward after this year. We have also capped the amount an applicant receives for this grant to $25,000, and this is just to be consistent across the 5 programs we've proposed, which all have caps on them. The tax increment equivalent residential grant will apply to the total residential value rather than just the residential portion as presented last month. And we have added the ability for new property owners to take part in the facade program, bypassing the 5-year cycle, which this new plan stipulated. Regarding the area where the CIP applies, we have extended the map to include 2 adjacent opportunities that weren't previously included, but they're prime for development, and that is 215 Rubin and 120 Rubin Crescent. We have also amended the wording of the recommendations relating to the BIA to be more flexible and extended the timeline for completion. With regards to the parking recommendations, we've revised the cash in lieu of parking recommendation to parallel the CPPS process to give us due time to consider the options, and modified a recommendation to include the addition of more signage and parking information pieces to inform the public about the parking that is available in our downtown core. And lastly, in order to fulfill our objective of connectivity, we have added a recommendation for the CPPS process to consider how new developments will link to community assets. If Council approves this plan tonight, we will begin working through the action plan and with property owners to walk them through the programs that are now going to be available to them. I just want to take a moment to thank everyone who participated in this process, especially those that let us know they are committed to seeing the downtown thrive. And we had tons of different offers come in, everything from volunteering to creating murals in our downtown. So it was really nice to see. If Council has any questions about the changes or the finalized plan, I'd be happy to answer them. Oh, you're muted, Mayor.
I'm muted. I don't know why I'm doing that. I'll just stay unmuted. Thank you, Ms. Janeau, for your presentation and for updates on, I think, the results of some additional conversations. And we're really happy to see some of those conversations having happened already, because we know there's lots of enthusiasm and a real want, I think, for this particular program to take flight. And for those who live, work, or do business downtown to see, you know, the fruits of, I think, what is collective labor here. So appreciate that. I'll ask council colleagues for any questions in regards to some of the recommended changes or other comments or questions you may have on the status of the concept for the program at this stage. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Hillary. You guys did some great work there getting all this together. I'm very pleased actually with the concept of the report and program as it is so far. I know we've got some lots of items to fill in, the minute details and whatnot. One item that came up with some business developers and whatnot on both sides, I guess, and through our own council, was the cash in lieu of parking. So I thought I'd bring it up just to, just so that it's on the record. And I want to state that I'm in support of the cash in lieu of parking. Now, how that will work out, what the number will be, is to be determined, of course. And some of the drawback, or some of the criticisms on it was probably that it would be a disincentive if we charged to remove the parking spaces. And I don't agree, because first off, it's hard to say, make a statement like that when you don't know what the fee would be for a parking space. It could be $500, it could be 5,000, and in some cities as high as 30 some thousand. I think it's quite high. So until you know what that number is, I don't think there's any disincentive. And I think, if anything, even if when the number is a reasonable number, there's still a lot of incentive just having that program, because if you think about it, if you're building, if you're wanting to build some kind of building, unit, apartment, whatever it might be, on a small lot, that's difficult when there's a required a number of parking spaces. And if you're able to remove that by maybe paying a fee of $3,000 to $5,000 per space, which would allow you first off to build the building, which again, that's just right away, you're in the game, you're potentially making profits. The other side of that is, instead of maybe I'm just totally using examples, but if it's a 2-unit building that you could build in the past, but now you can build 3 because you don't need those parking spaces, I think you're still ahead of the game dramatically, as long as we come in with a fair price. And I agree that has to happen. But I want to point out that parking, at the end of the day, is a municipal responsibility, nobody else's. We're the ones on the hook for it. If there's complaints, it comes to the municipality, period. So by having cash in lieu and having a fund developed that's going to allow us to further either increase the parking spaces that we have some way, somehow, or improve what we already have, or add signage, or potentially, depending how strict the fund is, use it for other related endeavors, which could be for pedestrian traffic spaces, walking, bike paths, I don't know. But anyways, I think that fund is important. I think there's developers out there who think it's important as well. I see Gilles on the line here. Gilles has reported to Hillary back in the past, and it was involved in some of the surveying, I believe, and feedback. And maybe if he's the only one on there, maybe he could, if you could just give us your 2 cents on the cash in lieu of parking, if you can.
And Deputy Mayor, I think if we're going to open it up at this stage, we'll do so with first the indulgence of our council colleagues. But if we're going to open it up certainly to Gilles, then we may wish to do that with other members of the public and stakeholders, which of course include the BIA at this stage as well. So
my apologies, I've stepped out, but
no, it's okay. It's okay. Yeah, well, we can do it now. It's our meeting, so I have no problem inviting Mr. Briesbaugh to speak now. But I then think we should also recognize the BIA, because I understand they have lots of opinions about parking too. So let's do it in that order, with the indulgence of colleagues. Mr. Briesbaugh, we'll invite you to go first if you'd like to speak.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Deputy Mayor. Great work on behalf of the Hillarian team, that I call them. So basically, I kind of concur with what Deputy Mayor is saying about a fee, as long as the fee is reasonable and that the fees are used to improve the walkways or pathways to access, more parking spots. I think leaving it totally to the developers, I think it could be a train wreck. So I think that's a good balance, in my opinion. That's it.
Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you, Joe.
And I see we have Debbie Wilson and Darren Johnson from the BIA. So if one or both would like to speak to parking, this is your chance.
I'd be willing to speak, Your Worship.
Okay.
Yeah, parking is an ongoing conversation that's been happening in the downtown, maybe since the beginning of time. However, we saw some great things in terms of the DCAP draft. We gave some feedback to Hillary, and we were happy to see a lot of that taken into consideration. But as far as the parking in lieu, I think for the BIA, we just found we needed more details about exactly how that was going to work. Sort of the numbers involved. And for example, if there is an urgent need in the eyes of the community, which I think has been voiced at various times, then how long will it take to accumulate a significant enough amount of money to implement some sort of parking, implement or add some new parking in the downtown area that would be covered by that parking in lieu. So I think we would like to know more, definitely about the parking in lieu, just because right now it's a bit vague for us to sort of get behind this at this point. But other than that, the rest of the report was excellent.
Okay. Ms. Wilson, anything you wish to add or?
No, thanks. I'm good.
Okay. I see Mr. Dyke, so I'll go to Mr. Dyke.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think there's some good points raised on the cash in lieu parking piece. I think the one thing to keep in mind at this time, what we're looking at council to approve is just create a tool that we can use. Not that if it's approved tonight, it's not going to be implemented tonight. It allows Hillary and her team to go through and meet with Darren and the BIA, as well as the landowners in the core areas as well, to have those broader discussions that have been brought up. Because one of the things to keep in mind is, as the Deputy Mayor did raise, the parking concern comes back to the municipality at all times. Yes, we do understand there's a cost associated to it with development, but it's up to us to ensure that we do have adequate parking. And how that fund is used, it is dedicated to parking or parking related matters. And it's not just the building of new parking places, it's the rehabilitation, it's the upkeep, the modernization of things of that nature. So all that will be explained as part of an implementation tool. It's all we want to do now is use this time to leave the policy in the document to be used if that's where we land at the end of the day. But by not keeping it in there, you'd have to come back and re-amend the entire plan if that was a decision to move forward.
Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, I just want to say I agree with Carrie that we've got to leave it in and then figure out the those greater details. I did have another comment, but it completely slipped my mind. Boy, I must be almost 60. Okay, that's my problem. It'll come back to me.
Deputy Mayor, while we're just on parking, Mr. Dyke and Ms. Janeau, I think I just want to acknowledge that the BIA's suggestion was for a parking study, right, to fully kind of contend with limitations and opportunities. So I'm just curious about whether or not you think that will be undertaken as part of the ongoing work of downtown revitalization. And of course, we also did receive another suggestion for this open option parking proposal as an alternative to the cash in lieu model. I agree. I don't think we want to go too granular here, but I just want to give expression to both those ideas or suggestions as part of the mix, right? When it comes to navigating this new terrain and making sure that obviously parking isn't an obstacle to development given the constraints in the downtown. So I don't know, Mr. Dyke, perhaps you could speak to that? And I'll go to Councillor O'Sullivan.
I think Hillary can speak to it and I can add if need be.
Okay, your hand is still up. That's why I went to you. Okay, Ms. Janeau.
Yeah, I was just going to say too that as we kick off the CPPS process, which we're hoping to start the engagement hopefully in April, we'll be really delving into the details there, where we'll be setting the new standard for parking for downtown. And then a cash in lieu of parking policy would just be something on top of that, and another tool in addition to that. So I think we'll flesh a lot of it out in the coming months as we work through the CPPS.
Okay, excellent. I'll go to Councillor Sullivan and then back to Deputy Mayor. Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, and thank you, Hillary and team, for this report. I'm thrilled to see that there's focus and effort going into the downtown core, because it's a great place and it can be even better. So I also would support the cash in lieu of parking, because I think that there is a move towards people having less automobile or relying on automobiles as much as they used to, particularly with working from home and the whole new different way of life. I really believe that we need to have more focus on bike and pedestrian traffic in the downtown core. And so bike parking and bike lanes and maybe space for outdoor patios in front of some of the establishments. And just even reserve the parking on the main street for accessible parking, and find parking off the main street for regular parking. So I really believe that we need to have a little bit more pedestrian and bicycle friendly downtown core. And if cash in lieu of parking will support that, I'm definitely all in favor of that. And of course, needs to be reasonably priced and not to severely disadvantage any developers, but having people downtown on bikes or walking is going to be a really good thing. So thank you.
Great, thank you. And I'll go to Councillor Strachan.
Sorry, yeah, I guess just to tie into the comments that Councillor Sutherland has made, I think that this is a great report. I'll start off with that. I think that there's lots of good points in here as to where to move forward, and a good plan for studies and so on. So I kudos to everyone who provided input and for taking those points into consideration. The cash in lieu of parking, it kind of is like cash in lieu of parkland. It's going to be great in some circumstances, and it's going to really drive some other people crazy. I love the idea of making it bike friendly. I'd love to know more about what that actually means. How do you get certified to be bike friendly? I think it's fantastic. I think during COVID, from what I saw during last summer specifically, there were certainly a lot of people who came from out of town who were, looking to expand where they were traveling and so on, and were discovering, new spots and so on. So I think that that's great, and it'd be great to be on the map for that. However, when it comes to parking in town, I think we really need to make sure that the parking that is there is well advertised. And we talk about that for signage, talk about making it easier to get from Prescott up to Riverside Park for the parking, with a path and so on. So I think that's important. I don't agree that we can just say that cycling and walking and more space downtown is the right way to go. I don't live in downtown Kemptville. I can certainly cycle in there with 3 kids and a dog. It might be challenging, so if I ever wanted to come in town, I do need a place to park. So I think that we need to strike the right balance with that. So it can't be too far in one direction. So, and I know that that's not the intent of this. I think the intent is to try and capitalize on what we do have and look at some areas that perhaps we haven't fully explored. So that's the only comment I have to that. Otherwise, I think this is a fantastic report, and thank you very much.
Okay, Deputy Mayor, you're right there. Go right ahead.
2 points I want to make. One, just kind of follow up with what Darren had mentioned. There's not going to be a ton of money, in the pot over the next year or so, unless all hell breaks loose and we have some. But, even at whatever number I may have mentioned, I don't think there'd be a ton of money to do a lot of work. So, I think Gary can concur with me that, it's good down the road, just like it is today. If we need more parking and we need to spend money on parking or fix things, that goes through budget. That's with council's discretion. So it's not like it's completely waiting for 20 years out that we have $1 million in the bank that we can actually do some repairs down there. So I suspect that's the way things would move along. It'd be nice to have a big kitty built up really fast, but I don't think that's reasonable. So that's just my first point, and staff can correct me if I'm wrong. The other point I wanted to make was, and this is touching on what Kristen and Doreen said about the bike in the past and stuff. And that's all wonderful. And Doreen mentioning that, we want to encourage more walking and more biking, which may lead to less cars. But I would suggest that per capita, yes, but because we're growing, and because the final goal for downtown, and you'll get this from Debbie's mentioned probably, and Darren has mentioned that, and Hillary in her report, that the parking for downtown right now is purpose parking. They go there for an appointment, for whatever, get their taxes done, whatever, and then they leave. they're not usually going there to park and spend the afternoon walking around downtown. It's not the Merrickville right now. Maybe one day, well, who knows? But you go to Merrickville now on a weekend or on a weekday, you're probably getting out of the car and walking around the whole strip. We're doing the whole strip. That's what my wife and I do. So that's destination parking. Right now, people are going there for a purpose downtown, quick jump in, go, get this thing and get out of there. But our goal, I think, and the BIA's goal and the BIA group is that over time, this becomes a destination where people actually do park for longer periods of time. So more parking, I think, is going to be needed in the future. But I'm going by a per capita basis just because there's more volume down there that want to be down there and want to do this destination type. We're looking at improvements to our Riverside Park and other areas down there. And if we do get more businesses coming down there, there's that potential for people to hang around a little longer. So parking, I think, is going to be an issue more than less as we go forward. Those are my 2 comments.
Mr. New, anything else you want to add to that conversation?
No, I think it's all great points, and we'll keep them in mind, and you'll all be involved in the CPPS process as we move forward and discuss parking in more detail for sure.
Okay. And just quickly to add to Councillor Strachan-Yan's point, as I think I highlighted to you as well, I think the bikeability of parts of downtown with narrower streets is tough, right? So it's one thing to brand, businesses more inclusive because they have bike racks, etc. But if the route or the journey to get there is perilous, what ultimately does that mean, right? And a lot of those constraints are things outside of our control, and some of them are within our control. So our hope is, even though we have lots of parks and green space in the downtown, that we think very practically about what does it mean to actually travel by bike, especially with kids and others in tow. It's a different experience, and sharing the road, especially where there are significant constraints, is tough. So as you know, we had a short discussion about that. So I look forward to all of the, I think, good work that is coming, but it's great to see this framework in place. I think Councillor Strachan has her hand up again.
Yeah, cycling, it definitely gives you a different view on the world when you're a little bit more vulnerable on a bicycle. It makes you see some of the sketchier areas that you hadn't really thought of when you're in a car or you're a pedestrian. So lots of work to be done there, but I think it's it's the right step forward. I just want to talk about that the point that the Deputy Mayor raised about destination parking. As somebody who doesn't live in town, I think that when I do come into town, often there's times, sure, I go in to get a haircut, fine, I go in and I come back out, I'm there for, maybe the hour, but oftentimes if I'm looking at a Saturday afternoon where I want to go there and I could go to Riverside Park with the kids and then maybe go and grab lunch and, try and do a few more things in town that, I think there's probably a reasonable number of people who live in North Grenville or in the surrounding areas who do use that space as a destination. Maybe not quite in the same way as Merrickville, but it's starting to, as people become more familiar, maybe with COVID, as we spent more time here, people know all the different businesses and how close they are, and that you can walk from the other one to the other. I think that we're on the precipice of that kind of destination parking. So for sure, I think there'll be lots of opportunity to grow into that. So definitely where we should want to land. I don't know that we'd want to or that we could ever be Merrickville, but I think we can find our own way as far as that goes.
And Ms. Jadu, just one more thing. I know that there had been a question raised by myself and perhaps others on the footprint for the downtown and what were the boundaries when it came to Prescott and Clothier, but in particular, I think Prescott. And I wondered, have you had that opportunity to look at, where does the footprint end? It was feeling somewhat arbitrary on Prescott Street just by virtue of how Prescott has grown. So I don't know where the line is right now.
Right. So we did just expand to include those 2 properties. And the main reason we kept it still similar to the previous footprint was so that we're not diluting the programs too much that we do have. They are fairly small pots of money, all things considered. And we really wanted to focus on some prime opportunities that we see in the downtown core, right in the downtown, that we know property owners are looking to develop. So we really want to focus on those opportunities first. And as we discussed before, there is an opportunity to take CIPs to other places in the municipality or to expand them to other areas when we need to.
And the two additional properties then are?
So it's 120 and 215 Reuben.
Ah, okay. So you've left the Prescott delineator where it was, is that correct?
Yes, the southern border, yeah.
And does that mirror the BIA's footprint?
So that's where the one recommendation comes in for the BIA to look at expansion. So right now the CIP area is actually bigger than the BIA footprint. So we know the BIA has looked into that. So the only change we made to their recommendation was not limiting them to just go up to Rito Sanders in the recommendation from the previous version. So hopefully to look at matching the CIP area and the BIA footprint eventually.
Okay, so I saw Ms. Wilson raising her hand. Debbie, would you like to add something further?
She just answered my question.
So I guess just so you're aware, and just Hillary, so I can share it for the benefit of my colleagues. There have been businesses that have reached out to me to say, especially on Prescott, right? Because there is, I can't find a clear logic for why the CIP program, not this one, but its predecessor, stops where it does. It stops at the home hardware. Where is apart from accommodating the Reuben properties, which more or less makes sense, where does it stop right now?
I'm wondering if it'd be too much trouble for Pollock to pull up the map. Would that take too long, Pollock, or would that help?
Yes, just give me one moment, please.
Might help us a little better here.
Yep. All right.
Yep, perfect. And just scroll down a little bit if you could.
Let me just actually zoom out a bit to give everyone a better view. Is that good?
Yep. So as you can see there, I believe, and Amy our Director of Planning can correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Martin, but I believe it matches as well the zoning area for the downtown commercial core. So I believe that was where the initial plan came from in 2013 for the area.
Okay, so again, I think just conceptually speaking, I certainly have received questions from, say, businesses that I think are outside of that area, who, not for the purposes of this project, but for the purposes of previous discussions on the CIP, have wondered why they are not eligible, right? So I think we're talking about a furnace company and a garage, right? And others that have, populated other parts of Prescott. So again, I'm just looking, and perhaps it's a better question for Mr. Dyke or Ms. Martin. What is the rationale, right, for the delineation between certain businesses on Prescott being eligible for the CIP? And I'm assuming there's been no change to your CIP area with the exception of perhaps the two Reuben developments. Is that right?
Yes, just those two.
Okay. So historically, what has been the rationale to delineate Prescott as it has been delineated? Because I know there are businesses who sort of think they are part of that downtown community and are curious about why they wouldn't be eligible for any of these programs.
If I might, Your Worship, I think generally from the standpoint is you're trying to create the condensed or the density area within that's the defined proper core. Unfortunately, there's always going to be somebody on the other side of the line. The businesses that you just referenced, it goes from being the core area delineation line, a big tract of residential, and then they exist right on the other side of the residential, right? So the delineation kind of, with respect to them, it makes sense because the core area stops and you get into the residential piece before those businesses are there.
I think that's right.
Right. So that's generally the way it goes. One thing the municipality does have an opportunity to be, as it goes forward and the programs are up and running and, you know, are seated, you know, are properly seated and successful, and that council can revisit the delineations of the area, similar to, you know, lots of different growth areas municipalities expand over time, and that's what this would go forward. So it's just looking at concentrating on the clearly defined core now, or at least the traditionally defined core now, working the plan out, getting the implementation tools in place, and then it can be revisited if there is a desire or a need to make it larger.
And two, when we're looking at the history, just a point there, the original CIP was actually only for Rito Sanders, and then the BIA petitioned and brought it down, if you remember, I believe in 2017.
Okay. Yeah, I think this is an important conversation to have, right? Because as I guess Prescott's evolved in its own way, I think there's a funeral home there as well. That's quite, you know, a large presence. I think they would describe themselves as part of the downtown, but I hear the way that it's evolved, and you know, there is, you're absolutely right, a delineation of sort of a core business component, right, to Prescott Streets and residential, and then it becomes more commercial again. So I think we just want all businesses to kind of relate to being downtown, whether or not they're in that kind of footprint or not. I think it's important as we move along here to kind of figure out whether or not we're missing opportunity or see some appetite to be more inclusive. So that, you know, that's something that certainly is on my radar screen, and I'm glad to have this part of the discussion this evening. I'll go back to council colleagues. Anything else? Anything else, colleagues? Okay. So with that in mind, I'll just go to any of our, we're sort of out of routine here, but is there anything else that either the BIA or Mr. Brisebois want to add to the discussion, given that we've brought you in already? Is there anything else you'd like to say before we move on? I'm not seeing everyone on my screen, so I'm assuming silence means that things are okay. And if that's the case, then I will read the recommendations that have been suggested for us for this evening. Just one last question of clarification. This community action plan is for businesses only, obviously not residents. It's obvious that obviously is the case. Is that correct, Ms. Janou?
For the CIP incentives, yeah, specifically the facade, we did see residential in single dwellings able to access it in the past, but they're no longer able to under these guidelines.
Okay. Okay. So the recommendations are the following: that council receives the Downtown Kemptville Community Action Plan. They will instruct staff to implement the recommendations in the Downtown Kemptville Community Action Plan. That we authorize $175,000 to be drawn from general reserves to be used to fund the CIP programs for 2021, and that we improve and enact bylaw 2421, being a bylaw to designate community improvement project areas and to approve the Downtown Kemptville Community Improvement Plan. I'll go back to my Zoom screen, and I see that Deputy Mayor is looking to move that, so I'll look for a seconder, please.
I'll second it.
Councilor Strachan, great. Thank you. So any further discussion, colleagues? Obviously, lots of good work. Ms. Janou, when could we expect that you'd report back on sort of, you know, what the next steps are in terms of early implementation of the plan?
So for next steps, we'll begin some of the actions that you see there right away. We'll begin contacting the property owners to let them know these programs are available, as well as some of the other programs that we noted they'll be starting in March. And then we can come back sooner, but we do have a set date to come back at the beginning of 2023 to review how things are going with the plan, as well at that time to address the development charges bylaw, which would be set to expire in March of 2023. Okay. Yeah, I think we'd likely be interested in how you're doing early in 2022, but we can we'll take it one step at a time. Obviously, this is a first effort for
North Grenville in terms of really focusing and streamlining some of the development opportunities in the downtown. So I think we're very excited to know how it's going and how we can improve it, and where there may be other opportunities that are difficult, or that aren't really available right now, but may become things that our business community would like to see. I'll go to Deputy Mayor.
This question's for Hillary, again, just to follow up, Hillary, on the timeline that the mayor mentioned. I think an important piece is obviously this cash in lieu of parking for developers, whether they move ahead or not, they want to know for sure. What's the timing on that? How are we going to come to a decision on the number? Are you coming back to council for that with some recommendations? What's the next step on that, and how quickly you think you'll get that piece back, since it's one of the ones that's talked about quite a bit?
So we'll be starting the CPPS process, and there's certain legislation around the amount of community engagement and public sessions we have to hold. And Director Martin can speak a bit more to that. She's a bit more knowledgeable on that in regards to timeline. And just one other note there that I misspoke on to the mayor is we'll be back as well with reserve fund strategy, so we can give you an update on this year's successes when we look towards the future years and the reserve funds there.
Okay. Do we have Ms. Martin with us this evening?
You do.
Hi. Oh, there you are.
Hi. Sorry.
Did you get my question, Amy, or do you want me to repeat?
Yeah, I mean, sorry. The CPPS in itself and a cash in lieu of parking bylaw they can go hand in hand. You don't necessarily need a CPPS bylaw in place to have a cash in lieu and parking bylaw established, but certainly as part of the strategy as to how we address parking in the downtown from a planning policy perspective, it's a useful tool to have when trying to provide solutions in an area that is already constrained with parking.
What's the timing on that, Amy? That's what I'm looking for.
So we're hoping to begin. So under the Planning Act, we have to hold both an open house and then a general public meeting after that when you're introducing the bylaw. So an April timeline to hold the open house for members of the public to provide comment.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Okay, any other questions? We've got a motion on the table as moved by Deputy Mayor and Councillor Strakian. If there's nothing else, we'll call the question then. All in favor? Good. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Jenny, for your work, and for Mr. Dyke, who I know has been involved in the architecture of the program. Appreciate this coming forward once again. And I expect that we'll look forward to hearing more about the rollout of the strategy in the coming months.
Thank you.
I'm just admitting Councillor Barkley back in, Your Worship.
Okay, I think we have Councillor Barkley back in.
We do. Thank you.
Okay, great. I'm just flipping screens here. So I'm going to go to the tourism development strategy. I understand it's Mr. Gilmer who's speaking to that this evening.
Yes, that's correct, Mayor Peckford.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. In 2019, North Grenville launched a new dedicated tourism program. This included the launch of a new Explore North Grenville website, the hiring of a tourism student, the launch of social media channels, and the creation of the first dedicated tourism guide. In 2020, the municipality received $20,000 from RTO9 to develop a North Grenville tourism strategy. The total cost of the project was $40,000, with the remaining $20,000 coming from the 2020 municipal budget. A request for proposal process was conducted and MDB Insight was awarded the contract. A steering committee was formed, including the North Grenville Chamber of Commerce, the Old Town Kemptville BIA, the mayor, and staff. The draft strategy was presented to council on January 12th, 2021, and staff was directed to report back to council with a plan for tourism service delivery and budget for 2021. As advised by MDB, staff is recommending that the municipality take a phased-in approach to the 2021 budget or tourism budget. COVID-19 has created many uncertainties for the local tourism industry. Much of 2021 will be dedicated to helping businesses prepare for when we are ready to welcome visitors from outside communities. Much like 2020, it looks like 2021 will be focused on local tourism. Staff is recommending the following tourism budget for 2021. We've budgeted, sorry, Pollock, if you could please, yes, thank you very much. So just looking at the second table, staff is recommending that the following tourism budget be approved. We've budgeted $52,000 for a full-time tourism coordinator and $52,400 for marketing and product development. This includes things like our tourism guide, Todd signs, 2 new area profile signs, downtown and hamlet banners, and some additional marketing campaigns. We've also included $28,000 in the budget to assist with community-led events like our downtown promenade event that we hosted in 2020. The tourism budget aligns with the recommended action plan as outlined in the tourism strategy. The total tourism budget for 2021 will be $132,400. Staff is recommending that council approve the additional expense required to hire the new tourism coordinator. The 2020 approved budget included $6,200 to hire a tourism coordinator. Staff is recommending that those funds be reallocated to help cover the cost of the new full-time tourism coordinator. After reallocating these funds, the total cost of the new tourism coordinator position will be $45,800 and will be funded through general reserves. The other items listed in the proposed tourism budget were included as part of the 2021 approved municipal budget. Staff will continue to look for ways to leverage the current tourism budget and apply for additional funding when available. As part of this tourism service delivery model, MDB is recommending that a tourism advisory committee of council be established and made up of 5 to 7 tourism operators. The committee will provide recommendations to council on the implementation of the tourism strategy. It is recommended that council direct staff to report back to council concerning the establishment of the tourism advisory committee, including the proposed terms of reference and membership. As part of the tourism service delivery model, MDB is also recommending that we explore pay-to-play revenue generating programs to help cover the cost of the tourism program. This funding model was used successfully to help pay for our 2020 tourism guide, and we will continue to explore other revenue generating programs moving forward. I think it's important to note that we certainly cannot do this alone as a municipality. The BIA, Chamber, and County will all play key roles in the implementation of this strategy. We're looking forward to working with them to create a vibrant and unique tourism industry in North Grenville. That concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Great, thank you, Matt. I think the establishment of a tourism advisory committee comprised of tourism operators is, I think, extremely useful and makes all sorts of sense in terms of leveraging their insights and perspectives. So glad to see that as part of the thinking as we, move into early stages of implementation, of the plan. I'm going to recognize Councillor O'Sullivan. I just want to say is we've had a couple of discussions at the county's level as well on tourism. And in fact, I was part of a tourism discussion this morning of mayors along the Rideau. And the very active working understanding is that while we may, obviously in 2020 and part of 2021, tourism was largely interrupted, right, as an activity. There is an expected heightened demand for more local tourism opportunities in the coming, months, if not years. So getting ready and being prepared for what could be a really, I think, accelerated appetite to explore local and stay local, I think is really important. So I see Councillor O'Sullivan and Councillor Barkley. Go ahead, Councillor O'Sullivan.
Thank you, and thank you, Matt. I'm very refreshed by knowing that we're putting some investment into tourism and local tourism. I think I said this when the pandemic first started, that it's kind of going to be a way of the future for an unknown length of time. And I think more and more people are loving North Grenville and loving the counties and connections within the county, and active transportation and local tourism is really important. I do have one concern, one question, and maybe it should be to the treasurer, Mr. Brookman, or you can answer it, Matt. I do have a little concern about all of the things that are being taken out of the general reserves and what the plan is to replenish these reserves, just to be sure that we don't find ourselves in a bit of a pickle down the road if we have depleted reserves too seriously. So I just want to know what the plan is to put that money back. Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll take Councillor Barkley's question, and then perhaps we can go to Mr. Dyke on the financial side.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think as recovery happens, it's good to be pretty fluid with our plans for tourism. And it also gives us an opportunity to get our house in order, because I think the space in 2022 is going to be very competitive as everybody wants to bounce back. And we already have some well-developed tourist destinations surrounding us. So it's important the work that we do this year, and I think hiring a coordinator is a good idea. I had a question and another comment. The question to Matt would be, this year in 2021, we have a local tourism focus. Will we be developing local or doing, because I know we've done already a great job, will we be developing more marketing material based on local tourism, or are we taking this time to develop material that we can use to attract visitors from outside the municipality? That's my question.
Yes, thank you for the question, Councillor Barkley. I think it's going to be a little bit of a mixed approach, and maybe a little bit of both, right? I think we need to concentrate our efforts on local tourism for 2021 for obvious reasons, but at the same time, making sure that businesses are prepared for when we do get back to, some type of normal, hopefully sooner rather than later. So again, to answer your question, I think it's going to be a little bit of both, concentrating on continuing our, shop local and stay local campaigns that we've been initiating over the past year. And secondly, then building off of that, and again, making sure that businesses are prepared for when people are doing these, they're calling them even just revenge trips, right? Making sure that when we do get back to normal, that, the businesses are ready for the flood of people. And we even saw that with our downtown promenade last year that we did throughout the summer. We saw, thousands of people that wanted to just, get out of the house and see what North Grenville has to offer. So definitely we'll look to do some additional local events like that, hopefully in 2021, if we're able to, but certainly without a doubt in 2022 and moving forward.
And again, just a final question regarding marketing, tourism marketing dollars. Will we be reviewing our existing marketing material? There might be some cost savings in terms of repurposing or revising existing material, because I know there's been lots of wonderful collateral produced, for Invest North Grenville, and the current, Love NG collateral that we produced. So there may be some cost savings in repurposing or revising some of our existing material. I hope that's part of your plans.
Yes, thank you for the question, Councillor Barkley. Yes, without a doubt, that's certainly our plan, and that was kind of the plan all along, was to turn the Love NG campaign, which was originally a business support type campaign, shop local campaign, and use it and move it over to our Explore North Grenville /tourism website and marketing material. So I think we've done a great job, and kudos to Hillary on all the work that she's done over the past year or two to develop the tourism sector in North Grenville, and all the marketing material that she's done, and videos and everything like that. And I think we can certainly look to build off of the things that we've already done, not necessarily reinventing the wheel, and look to leverage some of that stuff that we've already done.
In a funny way, because we haven't had a focus on tourism, I think come next year, it'll be a new destination for people that they're probably interested in exploring because it's never been on their radar. So thanks for all that work, and thank you, Hillary, for your work on this too. And that's all my questions. Thanks.
Okay, great. And I'll go to Mr. Brookman for Councillor Sullivan's question. But I would just like to know, Councillor Barkley, if you recall the presentation from the external consulting team, they were pretty clear that one of the fundamental pieces to be ready for a surge in interest in North Grenville is making sure that businesses were talking to each other, right, and really capitalizing on synergies, and that they properly anticipated some of the basic needs that tourists have, whether it's where else can I go when I'm here in the community, where can I find a washroom, right, where do I grab a coffee? So I think there is, from my understanding of the conversations we've had, some fundamentals that have to be in place so that businesses don't feel overwhelmed by what likely will be a real uptake. So yes, you're absolutely right. There's lots of people for whom perhaps North Grenville hasn't been on their radar, and I think that will change. Even if we did nothing, I think it may change. So we might as well get ready and be sure that our businesses, to every degree possible, benefit from that renewed interest. Mr. Brookman, do you want to tackle the reserve question?
Yes, I can. Thank you, Madam Mayor. So our reserve strategy, as we've already discussed during the budgeting process, needs to be reestablished. I spoke with Mr. Gilmer when he was putting this through its paces and trying to understand how to best approach this. The way that he's presented it, the net effect is $45,000. We have general reserves available for this type of initiative. So to take an initiative like this, make it a 1-year commitment to say, okay, is this going to work for us, and does this set us up for success? It does, and the amount that's being asked for is not excessive. So my concerns are satisfied, certainly from a financial perspective, to make sure that we're being prudent with our spend.
We appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Brookman.
Okay.
Thanks. Okay. Is there anything else, colleagues, you'd like to hear from Matt before we move on? The recommendations. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. I'll just jump in right here. Just to follow up for Mr. Brookman, I think we have to look at an investment in tourism. Well, it's simply that, not a cost, but an investment. I think the return on that investment is going to be amazing. So that's what reserves are there for, to take advantage of opportunities.
Agreed.
Yes, I concur entirely, Councillor Barkley. So well said. So the recommendations before us for this particular report are the following, and that is that we approve the hiring of a full-time tourism coordinator for a 24-month contract to assist with the implementation of the NG tourism strategy, that we approve the tourism service delivery model as outlined in the staff report, and we direct staff to report back to council concerning the establishment of a tourism advisory committee, including the proposed terms of reference and membership. So I'll look to council colleagues to move and second. Councillor Barkley and Deputy Mayor. Thank you. Any further comment or questions, council colleagues, in regards to what Mr. Gilmer has presented this evening? Councillor Sullivan, you're good? Councillor Strakian? Okay, then I'll call the question then. All in favor? Great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gilmer, for your continued work on this. It's obviously incredibly exciting, and we hope we land just the right person for that tourism coordinator role, and look forward to getting the word out about a tourism advisory committee. I think there's a number of businesses in this community that would be very keen to serve in an advisory role. So very exciting. Thank you. Okay, so with that in mind, we'll move on. Mr. Brookman, I believe you're going to oversee the 2021 interim tax levy. This is something that comes up every time around this year, so I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Brookman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, correct. It's just a matter of policy and procedure. The recommendation is before you. It's the Municipal Act requires that we enact a bylaw to authorize notification and collection of the 2021 interim taxes. The 2021 interim taxes will be sent out shortly for March 31st. That's our first round of taxation. The reason we need an interim levy is because we don't have the final numbers yet. Once we do, that will be trued up for our June billing. The June billing will go out due September 30th. And it's the net amount will be billed at that time. So we require this interim tax levy to start and continue our capital and operating expenses. They represent over 70% of our municipal sources of income. So it allows us to collect in advance pending our final determination of the county and school board rates. So I'll leave that as presented and open it for any questions.
Okay. Again, it's very pro forma. I think this is our third year approving a bylaw of this kind. So perhaps I can look to Councillors O'Sullivan and Strachan to move and second this, please. Great. Any question, colleagues? Okay, I'm going to call the question then. Thank you, Mr. Brookman. All in favor? Good. Thank you. You have your interim bylaw. Let's move on then. The Active Transportation Advisory Committee amendment was dealt with in our consent agenda. That's right, Ms. Babcock-Cormier?
That's correct, Your Worship.
Good. So then nothing in planning and development this evening or public works. So we will move on to the commemorative tree bench and bicycle rack program. And I believe that Mr. Guy is here to speak to that this evening. Is that correct?
That's correct, Your Worship.
Okay. So we'll welcome Mr. Guy to walk us through that.
Thank you, Mayor Peck, for trying to, I don't know why my video is not working here. Keep clicking on.
We can see you, but that you've muted yourself, Mr. Guy. What are those things?
There we go.
Okay.
Good now. Thanks. Yes, this policy's been in the works for some time now. I think it dated back to the previous Active Transportation Committee of Council. So happy to finally bring it through to Council this evening. Felt there was a need to create a policy to govern the purchase of commemorative trees, benches, and bicycle racks, and including that would also include picnic tables and potential of shade structures. This policy would provide a framework for a consistent and affordable program which will support continued investments in our parks, street, trail furnishings, and shade infrastructure. Commemorative fees would be reviewed and established annually based on competitive market pricing and should reflect all costs associated with purchase, shipping, and installation. Over the years, the municipality has received a variety of requests for placement of commemorative trees and benches on municipal property. Most of that would be within our municipal parks. These requests have been addressed on a case-by-case basis. However, the number of requests received by the Parks and Rec Department is increasing as we grow as a community. So formalizing a policy for the commemorative tree, bench, and bicycle rack will enable the Department of Parks and Rec to promote a formal policy that would create partnerships within the community and respond to increased demands for these initiatives. The cost to a member of the public or organization, whether that be a business or a not-for-profit, to get themselves involved in such a program would be 50% of the cost of the municipality to acquire the item. And the commemorative tree, bench, or bicycle rack, picnic table would remain the municipal property. If the policy is passed, we will create an application form. It would be available with an annual deadline for participation. And that is the report. Thank you.
Councillor O'Sullivan, this is your portfolio, Parks and Rec. Is there anything you'd like to add to Mr. Guy's report?
Just Thank you very much, Director Guy, for having this come forward now, because I was on the Active Transportation Committee when it first started. So I'm so happy to see it's finally getting here. Oh no, what was my question? I did have it just slipped my mind. I will think of it and I'll get back to you.
Sure, I'll go to Councillor
Go
Barkley.
ahead, Councillor Barkley.
Yeah, no problem. Councillor Barkley?
Thank you. I'm just trying to figure out how to lower my hand, but anyways, I'll get to it. Yeah, thank you, Mark. You're right. It's been quite a while in coming, and so it's great to see it. I know there's been renewed interest from community associations to get benches and bike racks and that kind of thing. I know that the benches, bike racks, maybe not necessarily trees, but I could be wrong. There are certain preferred types, or Parks Rec and Culture has specifications for the types of benches. And I'm just wondering if, you know, a community association wanted a different type, whether we could accommodate alternative choices. I mean, within a certain range of you know, we want to install stuff that's going to have some life to it and be easy to maintain. But I'm just wondering if, I know Kempton Court, you know, was looking for benches, but they preferred the wooden ones because the metal ones are quite hot, for example. And I know that some trees are, in terms of public works, are more favorable than other types or species of trees. So I'm just wondering if the specifications, whether we'll be able to provide the public and businesses with sort of a range, or whether we're just going to settle on one type of bench, one type of bike rack.
Thanks for the question, Councillor Barkley. Over the years, we have sort of focused in on a particular bench. It's a black powdered coated steel bench, is the one you're probably referring to. And then recently we looked at a different type of bench for along our trail system, more of using a composite board type of park bench. I think it's you know, it's something we can certainly consider and look at various ranges and types. I think the idea of looking at a form, you know, a specific bench is that this looks a little more uniformed in around the community, that all our park benches look the same, that we don't have 7 or 8 different types of benches in all of our parks. So the idea is to try and limit that as much as we can. But I believe, you know, we can certainly offer more than one type of park bench that might be more suitable or might be more interesting for a particular community group to participate in. So once we get the application moving, we can probably pick out a few different types of benches, particular that we want to promote, that the community can get involved in. But I don't think we want to, you know, I don't think we want to get into it where we're allowing the community to say this is the bench we want. Right. And then we have a various number of different types of benches in all of our parks.
Understood. Yeah, limiting the choice would be a good idea for consistency. The final question regarding commemorative benches and trees, etc. I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, that any kind of plaque or we'd want to have uniform as well, but would that be 100% the community's cost or the business's cost, this brass plaque or whatever is recommended to identify a bench as being a donation, for example?
No, I think that would be part of the 50% cost to get involved in the program. So that would be all inclusive, the item, whether it's a tree, a bench, a bicycle rack, and then the plaque would be all included as part of the 50%.
Thank you.
I'll go to, thank you, Councillor Barkley. You're good? Okay, I'll go to Councillor Sullivan.
Okay.
Oh, Sullivan.
Thank you. I recovered my thoughts. So, Director Guy, when you mentioned an intake for applications and a limited or a deadline for applications, that sort of brings two thoughts to mind, is that I gather intakes for requests for a commemorative tree or item of some sort could be submitted at any time during the year, and then could be actioned at any time as well, right? We don't have to wait for a deadline to happen for them.
No, that you're correct in that. I mean, obviously, the time of year, especially when you're talking about planting a tree, obviously there's better times than not, but certainly, and if somebody wants to, we've had requests for park benches, or people calling, want to donate a bench in memory of a past loved one, or a loved one who's passed on. You know, if they call us in November, I mean, you know, generally we suggest them, you know, wait until the spring, and then, you know, then we'll get back to you. So there's better times of the year than others for some of these things, but yeah, somebody could get involved in the program at any time of the year for sure.
Okay, and is there any particular, not a ceremony, but any particular, I guess a ceremony of some sort, when these things are installed and completed and the plaque is in place? Is there any plan for that? That's one question. And is there a limit on the budget? Because if you had a swarm of people coming to ask for things, or to, you know, to offer to pay for half of something, it could be a lot, potentially. They're paying for half.
We've had $10,000 in the budget in the past number of years, and that's what we have this year for this type of thing. So once our portion of the 50% is spent, then obviously that would be it for a particular year, and until the next budget year comes through. As far as a ceremony, I think we would treat them, you know, individually as they come along. If somebody is really requesting they'd like a ceremony, we can certainly maybe accommodate that, but it wouldn't be something.
That probably wasn't the right word. I mean, some kind of inviting the people who've requested it to come and see it. I don't really mean a big ceremony, just some kind of private, small acknowledgement. That was my question. And
yeah, I mean, there's going to be instances where, you know, it's not always going to be in memory of somebody. It's, you know, it could be a service group, service club who wants to donate for some more bike racks downtown or in a particular park.
Yeah, well, that'd be great.
Some of our trails.
And is it possible that we could look at kind of a distinctive North Grenville style bike rack for going forward, that they are all consistent and kind of maybe unique, or branding North Grenville?
Something we can look at. I know that you personally have suggested a certain type of bike rack, which is better for bikes than others.
Oh yeah, there's some bike rack you can't lock your bike to.
So I think we do have a few of them around the municipality now. So again, I think we would try and focus on that particular bike rack, but there's nothing saying that we, you know, we can't change as the years go on. I mean, that's why, you know, rather than putting an exact number on the donation, like $500, we've got it at 50%, because prices change. There may be new, improved park benches, picnic tables, bike racks that we want to look at, and the cost may be different. So that's why we settled on a percentage as opposed to a hard number.
And that was a good idea. Okay, I think that's it. Thank you very much. I'm so happy to see this finally come forward.
Council colleagues, any other questions? Obviously, I think it'll be well embraced. Mr. Guy, I think there's a lot of enthusiasm and appetite, and Council Barkley is right. As we've been doing some of the community association meetings, there's certainly a want to seize the occasion. So great to have the policy so that people can channel their energies and their resources wisely.
Yes.
I'm just back on my agenda screen, so council colleagues, I can't see you. Step in if there's something you'd like to add. Seeing nothing, I will read the motion, and that is that council receive and approve the commemorative tree branch and bicycle rack policy as attached. Councillor Sullivan, would you like to move that? Great. Deputy Mayor, thank you. I will call the question unless there's further comment or questions about this report. Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you. Okay, that passes. And how will you be getting the word out, Mr. Guy, on this new opportunity?
We will, once we develop that, we'll get started on the application ASAP, and then we'll work with Jill Sturdy, our communications officer at the municipality, along with Carolyn Lundy, to prepare sort of a media. I think we should do a media release that this program is out, and through our social medias, and let people know that this is now available for people to participate in, the community to participate in.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so council colleagues, we're nearing the end, but at this stage, I'll keep going unless someone tells me that they're desperate to leave their desk for 3 minutes. Seeing no movement in that direction, then I'll keep going. And I think we have Mr. Osborne here to in fact speak to the workplace harassment and violence policy. And again, I apologize. I believe that is the next item on our agenda. I'll have Ms. Babcock-Cormier confirm.
Yes, it is, Your Worship.
Great. Okay. So with that in mind, I'll welcome Mr. Osborne. And this is not the first time I think that council has addressed a workplace violence and harassment policy. I think it comes up on a fairly regular basis. But Mr. Osborne, as our new human resources lead, or relatively new, will have this first chance to take us through this one. Welcome, Mr. Osborne.
Thank you, Mayor Peckford.
We are having difficulty hearing you, Mr. Osborne. Maybe you want to cut your video and we'll just hear you by audio. Or Palak, perhaps you want to keep Mr. Osborne that he's being well heard. There we go. Oh, we've lost him. Okay.
Sorry, apologies, Your Worship. I've actually just turned his video off for him so that hopefully he can still hear us, but maybe that will alleviate the issue.
Mr. Osborne? I think we may have lost his connectivity altogether. Perhaps while we're doing that, we can just visit correspondence very quickly. Perhaps maybe Heather, you can just confirm that he is getting reconnected with us.
He's actually
hello, Your Worship. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes.
Sorry,
keep your video off. That's probably best at this stage.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I did turn my video off, so hopefully the connectivity with
much better. Okay, thank you.
Great. Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to speak to yourself and council tonight regarding the policy statement I've submitted. Part of that, the rationale behind that is that the policy statement supports the actual policy that we review at the Joint Health and Safety Committee on an annual basis. One of the projects we're going through with the Joint Health and Safety Committee is redoing our health and safety boards. They're a little bit behind. The policy statement is something that all employees need to see and have access to. It is a summary of the entire policy. So we do obviously want to make sure that we are compliant with relative legislation, and of course we don't condone those types of behaviors. So it just reinforces our commitment to health and safety, to that workplace free of discrimination and harassment, and it should be that way for all employees. And if there's any questions on the policy statement, I'm happy to take those as long as my audio continues to be in good favor.
Thank you very much. Your audio is great, Mr. Osborne, so thanks. Colleagues, Councillor Strachan, I know you wanted to bring this forward. Is there any comment, or you were just looking for context?
Thank you, Mayor Peckford. No, I was looking for context. Thank you very much, Mr. Osborne, for providing it. I think that obviously this is something that's very important. I know that it comes up in most positions that I've held, that there's ongoing, a review of policies and so on. I guess not maybe directly related to this, to this particular policy, but how it connects into the greater plan for employees and so on within the municipality for ongoing, awareness training and so on. Is that built as part of another layer of the overarching, policy?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Strachan. Yes, it is. It's we endeavor to train our employees on various policies throughout the year. As you can appreciate, we have a number of policies throughout the municipality. But of course, health and safety is foremost and paramount. And discrimination, violence, and harassment is one of the key policies that we train on. So it is critical that we review at the Joint Health and Safety Committee level, which we have. The policy statement, as I mentioned previously, supports that position, and that we don't condone those behaviors, so that all employees understand what harassment, discrimination, and violence is. There are examples in the actual policy itself, and we do post all these on our, as I mentioned, on the Health and Safety Board. So there's access to these policies, and certainly if anybody has any questions about those, we do post them on one of our shared drives. I'm actually in the process of updating a number of policies so that they can be shared throughout the municipality for all employees.
Thank you very much for that clarification. I appreciate it. I didn't have any further questions. I really just wanted to open up the possibility to say this in front of everybody, I guess, so that everybody's aware of what good work is being done on this side. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your question.
Mr. Osborne, you said that our occupational health and safety committees or committee, I don't know if it's one or several, were a little bit behind either in their structure or their focus. What has been the evolution of those committees? Is it really around making sure the policy is up to date, or is it a reconfiguration of those of that one workplace committee or those several workplace committees?
Thank you, Mayor Peckford. Yeah, so what we've gone through just in the last few months is we were a multi-workplace Joint Health and Safety Committee site. We are no longer that. We've gone through the ministry to change that format. So part of updating the boards and updating some of the policies that should be on those boards are, we have some new members to the committee who have gone through the certification training. So I applaud those who have stepped up and volunteered their time to participate in that training and become certified members. So as simple as it may sound, it's updating the boards so that employees know who their reps are.
Great, that's great. I think we're delighted to hear that, and thanks for your guidance on and making sure that everything is in place. Obviously, I know that both the provincial and federal legislative landscape has changed. Certainly federally it's changed, which I know doesn't affect us necessarily in the same way, but certainly the provincial legislation as well is quite rigorous. So we appreciate all efforts to ensure that, obviously the mechanisms are there for any employee at the municipality.
Thank you,
Is there anything you'd like to add, Mr. Osborne?
No, that's great. I would just, as I've said before, if anybody has any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to send me an email or give me a shout. I'm happy to help anytime.
Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you.
With that, Councillor Strachan, perhaps you'd like to move the following, and that is that Council approves the 2021 Violence and Harassment Policy Statement for the Municipality of North Grenville, and authorize the Mayor and Chief Administrative Officer to execute the 2021 Violence and Policy Statement.
I would happily move it. I think the Deputy Mayor and Councillor, I don't know if we're moving and seconding first and then going to discuss. Sorry.
Why don't we move, and then it's on the table. It doesn't preclude any further questions.
Okay. I will move it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. And then maybe we'll have Deputy Mayor, you can second. I'm sorry, I was reading the motion, so I failed to look up. So I'll go to Deputy Mayor and then Councillor Barclay. Go ahead.
No, it's more of a comment to Tim and Gary. Again, I know I'm doing this probably a broken record, but I really appreciate what you guys have done and bringing the HR within the municipality to really a whole new level. And I much appreciate that. I do a lot of work with my own clients on HR, and I'm feeling really good about our path. I know it's different with a municipality than maybe with a small business, but it's extremely important to be done right, and really appreciate what you guys are doing.
Thank you.
Councillor Barkley?
Yes, thanks, Tim. And I hope you'll indulge me, but not to take away from the serious intent of this policy statement. But I note, and I think the Deputy Mayor will agree, that it's nice to see that the policy statement is not intended to limit good-natured jesting or bantering.
No, that's correct. It's we want to have a workplace that's you can have a little fun and certainly observe where the line is and not to cross that line.
Phew, that was close.
Okay. So we've got a motion on the table. Any remaining comments? Councillor Sullivan, anything you want to add before I call the question? You're good? Okay. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Osborne, for your work and for the policy, and I'll call the question. All in favor, please. Thank you. All right. Thank you again, Mr. Osborne, for coming in for this section. I'm now moving on to correspondence. We've got the North Grenville Public Library minutes and the Old Town Kemptville BIA area minutes. Councillor O'Sullivan, is there anything you'd like to say about the library minutes?
No, I've reviewed them, obviously, but I was not at that meeting personally because I had a conflict with the budget meeting for councils that night, but I reviewed them and nothing unusual about them.
Okay, great. Deputy Mayor, anything about the BIA minutes you want to draw to our attention?
No comment right now.
Okay, great. So then we'll move on. I don't think a motion is required, Heather, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. So notice of motions, any notices of motion this evening? I note that we haven't dealt with the addition to the agenda, which Ms. Babcock-Cormier was the request from internet service providers for a letter of support. Where would we like to put that?
I would suggest, Your Worship, that we deal with it now.
Okay. Okay, and procedurally, I don't know what you're looking for in terms of a motion, but certainly to bring to council's attention that a fairly critical funding opportunity has opened up through the Rural Economic Development Ministry under Minister Monsef. This was a long-awaited rural broadband investment strategy that basically was nearly a year behind. It was scheduled to be launched, the investment fund, in early 2020, and by virtue of COVID, it was significantly delayed. So the announcement was not made until November that there was an opportunity for internet service providers to make applications in communities where they felt there could be significant benefit to basically a public-private funding partnership. To that end, we have received two, I think, credible applications or requests for letters of support. So we're not drivers of these applications for broadband investments, but we are being asked as a municipality to provide letters of support. In one case, the letter of support is coming from Bell, and in the other case, the letter of support requested is coming from an organization called Sengen. Both are looking to make applications to the federal ministry and have certainly made claims about the benefits that could come from an investment if in fact they were successful in getting federal dollars. So that is the spirit in which Mr. Dyke, and I see your hand, so I'll go straight to you, invited me to at least bring to your awareness that this is being requested of us as a municipality, and the funding deadline is March 5th, which is just in a few days. Mr. Dyke?
Yeah, thank you, Worship. I think it's just a point of clarification for council is the letters of endorsement don't commit the municipality to anything. It just shows our commitment to increasing our broadband capabilities across the organization and creating the framework for which people to apply for and leverage funding to that regard.
Yeah, so again, that is absolutely right. There was no municipal funding commitment requested, but obviously the internet, I mean, lots of internet service providers are obviously seeing an opportunity to make investments in rural broadband that otherwise they wouldn't necessarily make, just based upon return of investment or the return on investment in rural areas where you just don't have the volume. In our community, we're also aware that things like Starlink are coming online, but some of the upfront costs are such that they're not necessarily inclusive of all our residents. And I think there are other opportunities that internet service providers are seeing. This fund will be massively oversubscribed. There's no question. So by virtue of providing a letter of support, it is in some respects pro forma, but that being said, without the letter of support from the municipality, that these applications are much less strong. So to that end, in discussions with Deputy Mayor Mr. Dyke, we felt at this point that it is prudent to provide the letter of support where staff have deemed the applications credible. And at this point, there's just two on the table here, for which I think our letter of support would be valuable. What we don't want, I think, as a council is that, an internet service provider says we were ready to step up, but we didn't get a letter of support from you, and that weakened our application. It will be very competitive. Just by virtue of the number of applications that are going to come. So procedurally, Mr. Dyke, or Ms. Babcock-Cormier, I'm not sure what you need in order to formalize the request I'm making on behalf of the municipality.
If I might, Your Worship, we actually require a motion of council.
I'm just looking for language, perhaps that council authorizes the mayor and clerk to provide a letter of support for the applications deemed viable for improvements to rural broadband.
It would simply just be to direct the mayor to provide the letters of support.
Okay. Okay. You have the motion. Would someone like to move that motion? Thank you, Councillor O'Sullivan and Councillor Strachan. Thank you. Okay. Any discussion of what's at play here? Again, at this point, these letters are very pro forma. So it means little, but it could mean something. And I think that's the point where we wouldn't want to be seen to have declined an opportunity. I did ask specifically about the Bell application, which had more substance. Bell does provide some, what do you call it, five in town. Their application looks at providing better connectivity through fiber to the home to Bishop's Mills, Hexton, in a bunch of definitely underserved areas where rural broadband has been a struggle. So they did provide some specificity in terms of their particular application. Okay, if there's no comments, then I will call the question. All in favor? Okay, so with that in mind, we've dealt with that. Notices of motion. I'm just looking, colleagues, for any notices of motion. Okay, so at this point, we don't have any. Thank you. And now I'm just going back to my agenda. Forgive me. Introduction and consideration of bylaws. Are there any of those bylaws that remain outstanding this evening, Ms. Babcock-Cormier?
Yes, there is, Your Worship. It's bylaw 26-21, which was the bylaw to set the 2021 water and wastewater operating and capital budgets for municipal purposes.
Okay, and is that, so I guess I look to my council colleagues. Is this something that was previously discussed, or how is this arriving on our agenda in this form? This is the extension of our municipal budget discussion?
Yeah, it's a separate budget and requires, I think, a separate bylaw in order to set the water rates.
Director Brookman can speak to the matter.
Thank you.
That's correct. So the budget is as presented at the budget presentations. There were some adjustments that were recommended by council. Those adjustments have been entered into the budget, and the motion has all of those schedules attached to it. And presented to council. So this formalizes the process. It requires that council provide that motion to adopt the budget fully as presented.
Okay. So to that end, I'll look for a mover and a seconder then for that particular one. Councillor Barkley? Okay, Councillor Sullivan? Okay. Deputy Mayor, did you want to speak to this item or something else?
No, another item, so I'll wait if you want to pick it up after this.
Okay. So colleagues, we've had some very fulsome debate on water rates and capital investments in our wastewater treatment center. I'll call the question unless there's something someone would like to bring to our attention. You are bringing something to our attention, Councillor Barkley?
Yeah,
Yep.
Just that the bylaw that we're passing also includes adopting the estimates of the public library, and also, as I'm reading it here, it deals with the surplus. If there's a surplus at the end of this year, that it is addressed in accordance with our reserve and reserve fund policy, which is yet to be brought forward to us. But I think this is just an omnibus bylaw, and I don't see any issues. I just wanted to point that out to my council colleagues.
And just again, for context, this is coming to us in this way because, Mr. Bergman, can you explain again?
Happy to, Madam Mayor. So we've gone through the budget process. The budget was adopted, accepted by council. I just need a formal motion to put it in place. So basically, everything has been discussed, everything's been approved. Because there were adjustments, I needed to make those adjustments, bring it back to council as adjusted. That's all presented in this final motion, and we just need it formalized.
Okay, and is there any need to highlight those adjustments? Those were as a result of our budget discussions?
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
There were no material adjustments. It's just there were some adjustments especially in the capital projects. The operating budget was there were no material adjustments. We just had some substitutions in the capital projects. Those are now presented in this final request for approval.
Gotcha. Okay, that's helpful to me. Colleagues, to that end, understand if you do have questions, I think you've heard Mr. Workman's explanation. Deputy Mayor, your hand is still up. Is that for a different item or this one?
Different item.
Okay. With that in mind, if I don't see other questions, I will call a question on this one. All in favor? Good. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor, I'll just go over to you now at this stage. I know you've been waiting patiently.
Was it moved and seconded?
I was going to say my apologies, Your Worship. I need a mover and a seconder for that, please.
I apologize.
I'll move it.
Thank you. I was trying to find my mute button. My apologies.
And Deputy Mayor, I did wonder if there was a mover and a seconder, but for some reason I had just assumed I had called for that. So thank you. Okay, back over to you, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, this is just to back up on the notice to motion. I have nothing formal, but I was in discussion with Mr. Dyke, and he just said, "Well, bring it to council," so we'll bring it to council. And this is what I'm requesting, and the mayor are requesting is just a report from staff on a potential stop sign at the Depensier and Harvester Crescent. There's actually two there, but they have one stop sign. We're looking for a second one on the first intersection that you come into Tempo. And this was after a long conversation with the Tempo community and their concerns. So we wanted to act on that, and Gary suggested that we take that to council now. And I don't know the verbiage, I don't know the procedure here, but we don't do this very often. So I will leave that to our capable clerk to guide us on this and whether we do a vote. But it's mainly, I'm not demanding a stop sign. We're looking for a report on the whether this is viable or not. And I don't know, Gary, if you want to speak to that a little bit for me. It's up to you. If not, we can keep going.
Yeah, maybe Mr. Dyke, just before you go there, just to confirm with Deputy Mayor, we did receive a formal request, in fact, for the establishment of two stop signs, one near an intersection where the school buses all stop, and the other one is, as was articulated by Deputy Mayor, closer to the front end of the entranceway into Tempo. So I know that an email was sent by Tempo and it was forwarded to Mr. Dyke and Ms. Dunlop for review. So I'll go to Mr. Dyke now just for what are the next steps?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just for a process standpoint, so it can be handled simply at this point because there is no actual request being made other than to report back. We can address it through a direction to staff, and Ms. Dunlop will provide her analysis and recommendation to the request at the next available council meeting.
Yeah, I think that likely makes sense then.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Mr. Dyke.
So Deputy Mayor, you'll move that because I think you want a motion for direction. Is that right, Mr. Dyke?
Yes,
or
please.
you don't need the motion?
Yes, please.
Okay. So Deputy Mayor, Councillor Barkley, would you like to second that, or am I looking for another seconder?
Yeah, I'll second it, but I did want to make a comment once once you call before you call the question.
For sure. So you are seconding it. The motion
Yep.
is on the table, and to be clear, the follow up again from a lead resident at Tempo, Mairead Frizzell, I think is her last name, is that two stop signs be given consideration, and they are one at the very first intersection as you enter going west on Depensier, and the second is near 2580 Tempo at intersection of Glencrest and Tempo. They are asking for a three-way stop. This is where the school buses drop off, pick up. So there are major safety concerns here. They also note in the previous meeting with council, they requested that a temporary stop sign at Tempo, Harvester, Depensier be made permanent. We understand it's leaning and it's somewhat smaller than other stop signs. So they're asking that one obviously be replaced with a permanent one. So that certainly that request was forwarded to Ms. Dunlop upon its receipt about a week ago, but we're pleased to formalize the request for a staff analysis as soon as possible. So with that in mind, Councillor Barkley, that is what you're seconding, and I'm happy to invite your comment now.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that this direction to staff doesn't circumvent the regular Public Works assessment process. That's all. Public Works has a way of assessing these kinds of requests, and that would be part of the normal procedure.
Mr. Dyke?
Yeah, the process, no matter how the request comes through, their analysis is the same. It's based on engineering practices and warrants as dictated by the province and their regulations. So process won't change.
Great, thank you.
I think it's safe to say that Deputy Mayor and I heard a lot of anxiety. So I think definitely appreciate staff spending some time here and figuring out what makes sense, because there's a lot of concern, I think, throughout Tempo, certainly in terms of how to obviously make that particular subdivision a little bit safer for families and for drivers. So appreciate that. Looking for other council comments before I call the question. Seeing none, I will call the question. All in favor? Good, thank you. Thank you, Deputy Mayor, for your efforts to formalize that. Appreciate it.
I wonder if I can bring up another matter since we're in the mood of directing staff at this council meeting.
Fire away.
I understand United Counties have rejected a request for a stop sign on Van Buren, I believe, or is it Bridge or Reyna? I'm not clear.
Yes.
I wonder if council would support me in a request to staff to request counties consider a crosswalk so that pedestrians can cross from Reyna Way to Bridge Street and vice versa.
It's certainly something that has been talked about a lot, and I did see the county's analysis, and it was somewhat concerning given that there will be increased traffic on that road in the coming months and years. Mr. Dyke?
In this situation, Your Worship, I think this could be simply handled as a matter as a actually direction to you as our county council representative to have a request that the counties reconsider their decision for the crosswalk, excuse me, as opposed to it going through our staff back into the counties.
Would you be willing to take that on, Madam Mayor?
Happily. I would say to Mr. Dyke, however, I do need some staff analysis that supports a reconsideration of the request. I think you and I both saw the rationale provided by the counties that establishing a stop sign would create some safety issues, and that owing to the anticipated increase in use of that road by cars, owing to disruptions or construction on County Road 43, they felt a stop sign was even less warranted than it would have been normally. So, Mr. Dyke, for me to make effective arguments, I will need some staff support.
Just to be clear, I agree with the county's analysis personally, but I'd be looking for them to consider a crosswalk or a PXO instead of a stop sign.
My question is, I don't know if they're treated equally. I don't know if those would be regarded as equal, mitigation efforts. Mr. Dyke, do you have any insight here?
Simply, I think move matters forward. I think, yeah, I'll speak to Ms. Dunlop and she can report back through, through if that works.
Armed with the right argument, certainly the political appetite at council is to support these efforts. But I did see loud and clear what was a county's not just reluctance, but unwillingness to move forward. So if there's another way to get us to a yes, I am more than happy to be that squeaky wheel at the counties. Okay, Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you. We actually have had a request from a resident of the condo building, and there's certainly a lot of young families that live in there, and kids have to cross the street to get to the sidewalk. Absolutely, something has to be done there when you're getting more traffic. I think if the concern is that forcing every car to stop all the time would back up the traffic, then a crosswalk that would be activated as needed, then I think something has to go there. So I would absolutely support the crosswalk. And I do have another question then. What about the three-way stop at Sanders and Clothier? Because that was also a recommendation from the active school transportation. And I believe that was going to be discussed at counties too. What did they say about that one? Because that's a really confusing, doesn't make sense the way those stop signs are configured.
Maybe I'll go to Mr. Councillor Barkley. I had understood that the counties had that one under consideration and provisionally had said yes, but maybe they haven't. Councillor Barkley, do you have more information?
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have more information. Just a comment that, we've been talking about a one-way couplet and that it's probably a legacy from those previous conversations, but it's long overdue to, eliminate the confusion at that intersection.
Absolutely.
Okay, so why don't we seek to get an update and then we can tackle that one depending on what the outcome is. There was a third pending request at the counties, and that was that the speed limit on River Road, closer to the kind of entrance into Kempville near the roundabouts and Colonnade, that there also be a reduction in speed limits there owing to residential intensification along that stretch, increased traffic, more construction vehicles, et cetera. And I had understood from Ms. Dunlop that had been given the green light by county. So clearly we need a bit of an update from the director on what the status of those requests are.
Yeah, normally I would have something for you, but yesterday we were enclosed, so I wasn't able to meet the director.
All good. We'll move to get it this week. Okay, did I, Councillor Barkley, I think you were seeking to give me direction ultimately. I don't know if that was formalized. Mr. Dyke, do we need to do that?
Not in this case, Your Worship.
Okay. Councillor Barkley, you're satisfied that direction has been offered? Okay. All right. Good stuff. So I am then going to move us. So the bylaw has been dealt with, and we are now at the period for questions from the public and the media.
That's correct, Your Worship. We actually do have Hillary Thompson here.
Hi, Hillary.
Hi, I don't have any questions, so I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks for being here this evening. We always appreciate it. Ms. Babcock-Cormier, is there anything else via email?
No, I have not received anything, Your Worship, with respect to questions from the public.
Okay, great. Thank you. With that in mind, colleagues, without any questions I don't think we have members of the public with us this evening that have remained with us. Is that correct, Ms. Babcock Cormier?
Debbie's there.
We still have Karen Johnson and Debbie Wilson.
Oh, yeah, I'm flipping screens. Questions from members of the public? Mr. Johnson, Ms. Wilson, anything you need from us at this section, at this moment?
Sure. I have a question.
Go ahead, Mr. Johnson.
I'm just curious, the Leeds Grenville Small Business Enterprise Center presentation was great, and I always appreciate the work of Jeanette and Wendy, but I'm a little confused as to why we are paying for a service that we are already provided already. Maybe I'm missing some key points, but it seems to me like all along that the Leeds Grenville Small Business Enterprise Center has been offering their services and programs to entrepreneurs and potential business owners in North Grenville to date. So I'm really unsure as to why we're giving them a whole bunch of money to sort of continue to provide the same level of service. Perhaps I missed some key points.
Councillor Barclay appears to want to jump in there. Go ahead, Councillor Barclay.
Yeah, I think we originally approved a budget allocation to the Small Business Center because they had some dedicated hours and office space here in North Grenville. And with the pandemic, they still had time dedicated to specifically make themselves available to North Grenville businesses and budding entrepreneurs. So I think that's where it originated. And I don't think, personally, I'm inclined to remove that funding because next year, hopefully they'll be able to occupy some space in the municipal center and continue to provide that direct service to North Grenville businesses.
Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, and maybe Matt can step in as well, but I believe too, when we did the, this is now, they've been a few years with us now. So when they first approached us, it was to dedicate more time, as John said, and to actually occupy space. Though, I know, Darren might say, though they would make trips here in the past as well. But if you talk to Wendy and whatnot, their funding model also changed, and they were looking for more funding from various municipalities to help keep them basically able to come to us, which I'm suspecting it's happening in other municipalities as well because of that funding change. But Matt, I don't know if you can put more detail on that, but I think that's the gist of it.
Maybe before Mr. Gilmer speaks, because we had this conversation at the United Counties in the first round of cuts under the election of a new provincial government with Premier Ford at the helm, small business centers across the province were the recipients, the victims of quite a number of cuts. So I think they pivoted. They do receive quite a bit of money from the United Counties, and I believe they go to every municipality that they serve. In order to, not just this small business center, but in this instance, certainly this one in particular, seek support from almost every municipality they serve now. So I think they just had to change their business model. Mr. Gilmer, do you have anything to add?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Peckford. I think you guys summarized it fairly well. I think just one thing I would add as well is that they also allocate some targeted marketing as part of their services as well. So ensuring that they're advertising their services directly to North Grenville in our local newspaper, on our local radio station, and that sort of thing. So that's above and beyond what other municipalities would receive in terms of services from them. And then again, just to reiterate the fact that as the initial pilot project, the plan was to have them here, or they were here for over a year in an office here at the municipal center and offering one-on-one consultations. Now that they're not able to do that, they are pivoting, much like every other business, to offer their services in different ways. So as Jeanette and Wendy mentioned, that if a business needs that one-on-one attention, then they'll actually drive down to North Grenville and meet with those businesses one-on-one, or they'll set up a Zoom call and that sort of thing. So I think they're still providing the same level of service, just in a different way.
And of course, without them being here, they can't really speak for their own purposes as to why things have changed. So perhaps we can leave it there this evening. Thank you, Mr. Johnson, for your question. Any other questions before we move to adjourn? Seeing none, I then will move to the adjournment portion. And of course, the first matter is the confirmation of proceedings. Councillor Strachan, Deputy Mayor, would you like to move and second confirmation of proceedings? Thank you. I'll call the question on that. All in favor, colleagues? We can confirm what we did this evening. Thank you. And then I will look to Councillors Barkley and O'Sullivan to move to adjourn at 9:05 p.m., a bit later than we expected, but we had some good discussions this evening. All in favor of adjournment, colleagues? Good. Thank you to staff as always, to members of the public and stakeholders, media for joining us. We appreciate it. Have a good evening, everyone.
Good night, all.
Thank you. Have a good
Good
night.
night. Bye.
Right.